Hi everyone, welcome to Wednesday night and another episode of My Baby Experts. How are you? Going to give it a minute for everyone to jump on. So happy to spend another night, another amazing night with all of you and an amazing conversation that we're about to have. So I'm going to give it a moment and wait for all of you to jump on here. Hold on, my stream just shut down. Joe, come help me. Boy, that didn't last long. Okay, here we go. All right. I can't see you if I'm not in the stream, so I need to see you. Yes, hi. Okay, everybody's jumping in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another night. My name is Shari Criso, for all of you that might be joining us for the first time, and there's always new people. I am a registered nurse, a certified nurse midwife, and an international board-certified lactation consultant, and have been coming to you here from New Jersey since 2009. It's been quite a long time, and we are on episode 100, and I gotta look at my notes, 135 of the My Baby Expert Show. Woohoo! Let's get hashtag 135 in the chat right now. I want to see all of you. Hashtag 135. This is a big deal. There are so many good shows, and we're gonna add another one tonight with my special guests here. So everybody's jumping in now. And then of course I have Joe in the other room who is posting as me in the chat room. I'm talented, but I am not that talented that I can speak and post as well. So you will see him, and you can also post your questions tonight. Obviously, as always, chat away and let us know that you're here. Yes, hashtag 135. Yay! Okay, great. And then while I'm about to introduce my special guest, I want to know where everyone is from tonight in the chat room. We have people from all over the world who tune in to watch the show, sometimes live. I have people messaging me, telling me they're getting up in the middle of the night to be with us. So it is just an honor to have you all here. I want to know where you're from. Go ahead and post it in the chat. Tell me where you're from, and also your questions, okay? Fantastic. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce my special guests tonight, because these are two very special people to me, and I'm just so happy to have them both here to talk about this really important topic. Our topic tonight is cow's milk and gluten, two very common foods that are in most of our diets, especially here in the US, and two foods that you may want to think twice about, or we need to talk a little bit about. Are they really the healthiest choices for ourselves, for our family, for our babies? So that's what we're going to do tonight. I have Monica Amsterdam here with me, and Monica is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and a health coach and an expert for the media. Hi, Monica. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Monica was here with us in the fall too. We did a show together, but we were sitting side by side. So now you get to see her on the screen, and I get to look at her beautiful face instead of trying to look across to her. So this is great.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Thank you for being back with me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, great. And then we also have preventative cardiologist and cholesterol specialist, Dr. Nate Lebowitz. He's one of the top doctors in New Jersey, and I am so honored to have you here with us for this discussion. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for asking me. It's such an honor.
Oh, the honor is ours. Oh my goodness, we're so excited to have you both. Both Monica and Dr. Nate are practitioners of mine. So I want to tell you that, and I'm saying that because I want you to know that I only bring you the people that I trust the most, people that I would turn to for my information, for my own health, and that's who's here. So that's why I'm really excited tonight to have you both, because I trust you both impeccably. I wanted to just give you each a moment to introduce yourself to the audience and just give them your background just a little bit so they know who they're listening to, because there's just so much knowledge in the room tonight, and I want them to know. So if you could, Monica.
Sure. So I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I'm also finishing my schooling as a naturopath. And I already committed myself to get my PhD as well.
Wonderful. Awesome.
So my belief is looking at the root cause of the issues, of the problem, not just give I cannot prescribe medication because I'm not a physician, but also not just to give a supplement to mask the symptom. My philosophy is what is causing the symptom, what is causing that imbalance, and fix the root cause instead than just give a supplement to fix the issue, to stop the symptom. No, sorry.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And Dr. Nate?
So I'm traditionally trained in terms of academic cardiology, but over the years in practice, I've sort of had my own personal journey away from the way medicine is practiced today, which is sort of, pill based, and there's a pill for everything. I've come to really believe that 90% of health, wellness, longevity is a combination of nutrition and movement, and that the body has an incredible ability to heal and rejuvenate if you give it both of those correctly. The area that I tend to specialize in are people with genetically high cholesterol, anybody really with lipid disorders, and of course all general cardiology. But basically, I like to take people off pills instead of starting pills. I will tend to protect the patient from cardiovascular disease, which kills half of all men and half of all women, more than cancer, and it's completely, in my mind, completely preventable. And traditional medicine just keeps people away from, extreme illness, but it doesn't keep them well. Wellness really is takes more time with the patient, takes more education of the patient, takes a team approach, and takes a lot of commitment on everybody's parts. And then we wind up stopping pills instead of starting pills, and the patient achieves true wellness instead of just lack of illness, because those are very different things.
And that's so great. And it's so what we're about here, what we do with our education of really, with all the new moms and dads that tune in, it's always about getting the right start off in life. That's what they're doing with their children. They're also sometimes focusing on, while they're pregnant, it's a focus on staying well and keeping themselves healthy. And so much of that has to do with what foods are they putting into their body, how are they avoiding toxins, how are they just making sure that they can be as healthy as possible for the baby as they're pregnant, and then afterwards if they're breastfeeding, and for their own postpartum health. That was the topic that Monica and I did in the fall, was postpartum nutrition, and it was really great. Really, really great. Let's get into the topic, because I really want to discuss, we have a lot to talk about. The first thing we're going to talk about is dairy and cow's milk. And whenever I bring this up in other shows, we talk about this all the time when in relation to breastfeeding, because many babies are very sensitive to the cow's milk protein, and even if mom's drinking it while she's breastfeeding, it will go through the breast milk, and many babies cannot tolerate it in infancy. It always is surprising to everyone when I say, well, cow's milk is not really the first choice for anybody to be drinking. And that's why I really wanted to talk about it as a complete topic tonight. This is true for most of the world is not drinking cow's milk. Is that the truth about it?
Absolutely. It's actually very abnormal to keep your ability to digest milk after infancy. This lactase enzyme that we make, there's a mutation in Northern Europeans only to be able to continue to digest the lactose sugar after infancy. Most of the rest of the world loses that ability to some degree, and in most developing cultures, once the baby is weaned from its mother, there's no more dairy. But the Northern European culture became the dominant world European culture, and so cheese and dairy and all of that is part of part of the culture.
Right. Now, how does this really become a problem? I mean, we all hear that milk is good for the body, milk is good for our bones, milk is good for calcium, we need it. When you look at food pyramids and they talk about, there's a certain amount of servings that you need to have. And then when parents go to the pediatrician when they're done or the child becomes a year old, now it's time to start cow's milk. And this is really the opposite of what we know. Is that right, Monica?
Absolutely. You can find calcium in dark green leafy vegetables, sesame, tahini, sea vegetables. Then we don't eat in our culture sea vegetables, and they are so good for us. They are great also in iodine. Then it's good for the thyroid. And sardines, salmons with the bones, making bone broth. Is very important to use organic bones from organic cow, and also water is very important because if you have polluted water, that could be an issue as well. So
the thing that is the healthiest to drink in adulthood or after infancy, period, is clean water. There is nothing healthier to drink. Milk is not the healthiest thing to drink. In addition to the lactose sugar, there's milk proteins that are coming from a different species. So more of us react on a very subtle way. When somebody is ill and really traditional medicine doesn't have an answer, it's, in my mind, if going to be one or all of three things between gluten, especially American wheat gluten, or dairy, or alternatively as a third choice, maybe the nightshade vegetables. But Monica can speak more to that. But generally speaking, you can get in a much easier and healthier way your minerals and vitamins from green leafy vegetables, and all of the other sources that Monica mentioned.
Yeah. What kind of problems does dairy cause on the body? Like, what are some of the negative impacts of having dairy? Where do you see it show up? How does somebody know? I mean, and do they really have to be symptomatic for it to be having a negative effect on that?
Well, some people, they don't know, because also a reaction can happen not immediately. So after, maybe I will discuss about the two immune reaction, immediate reaction, the late reaction, and about the testing. But also dairy produce mucus. So if you have a child then has asthma, has respiratory issues, definitely milk, it might not be indicated, and also maybe the milk could be the causes of their issues. Is inflammatory. And the other big problem is even if somebody buys organic milk and the best milk available, but a lot of cows are being milked also when they are pregnant. Beside the regular cows, then they give hormones to produce more milk, growth hormones, and so the problem with that is we are ingesting those hormones, and we all know that when a mammal is pregnant, that is when we produce the most amount of hormones. So that is also another issue as well.
And the embryo, as well as infants and babies, are growing so fast, and their brains are growing so fast, that anything negative will be magnified and stored so much more than even in adults, which is why the mother's diet while pregnant is so critical, because if there's something toxic that she's taking in, it's going to be magnified dramatically in the developing baby.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So true, so true. And whether she's pregnant, whether she's breastfeeding, these are all times that are so important when the baby's developing. The questions
Also,
are.
prenatal is very important as well.
Yeah.
The mother needs to be in the best health possible. Also, the mother microbiome is very important before she even gets ready to conceive.
Yes. Yes. Just a few things more about dairy. There are some questions that came in. I want to just cover what are some of the, you were talking about like asthma, mucusy. Those are some of the symptoms, but I know that for us, we stopped drinking dairy in our house many, many years ago. We drink coconut milk here in our house, but what are some of the other types of milks or liquids if somebody wanted to give their child milk? What's a better choice? I know that Kate's asking a question about, do we have a problem with goat's milk? Since it's not plant or nut-based, her daughter has no problems with goat milk, but she gets eczema when she eats yogurt and, I love yogurt, and has a bowl of cereal with cow's milk. So how about goat's milk, and what other milks would you recommend?
I tend to love coconut milk, organic almond milk. You can make so many things out of these things and turn them into something incredibly healthy. I mean, between some chia seeds and coconut milk, and you put it in the fridge for 3 hours, and you have this delicious pudding. And you can put anything in it from or some organic berries, a few drops of vanilla. I mean, all sorts of things, and it tastes like the greatest pudding, and it's the healthiest thing you've ever seen. And
We're gonna need to post your recipe after the show, Dr. Nate, because they're all going to be asking me.
They're all.
Something else that then I add the probiotics. So sometimes I tell the mom there is some probiotics for infant, and also there is probiotics that is in a powder form. So they can put the probiotics in the chia pudding. So instead than having like the yogurt.
Yep.
The microbiome, the bacteria that live in our body, we live in their world, not the other way around, because there's trillions of them and so many fewer of our cells, and they regulate everything from our brain to our mood to our GI tract to our immune system. You have no idea. And the baby picks up its beginning of its microbiome at birth through the birth canal when it's being born. And if the mother's microbiome is healthy, the baby's microbiome is going to be healthy.
Yes, definitely.
Now, I know we're talking about dairy, but it connects with the microbiome. Is most of the grains now they use Roundup, and unfortunately Roundup is an herbicide and it kills everything, and also affect the microorganisms in our gut, in our intestinal gut. So the microbiome in our gut is involved in the production of neurotransmitters like serotonin, the happiness neurotransmitters. So low levels of serotonin are also linked to depression.
And your microbiome is linked to your neurotransmitter production. And
right.
Roundup, or also known as glyphosate, is one of the most poisonous. In many countries, it's been banned over 10 years ago. And some people are unwittingly having it in their lawn. And it's being used for off-label purposes. Right before a wheat field is harvested, they soak the field dramatically in Roundup to kill the wheat plant. 48 hours later, the plant has dried up better and it's easier to harvest. And we're finding it in our bread, in our environment, and It's also a hormone, an endocrine and hormone disruptor. So
Yeah.
for a developing baby,
Carcinogenic, and I know it's linked to lymphoma, and there's actually a big lawsuit with that right now. Yeah, very bad. We're going to get to that in a minute too. I just want to make sure that we answered Kate's question about goat's milk. Goat's milk.
So it depends also about the sources. So if she knows where, how the goats is being treated, is being fed, and her child is able to tolerate that, I would say is a better option.
Mm-hmm.
And but I will look very closely at the way symptoms that the child might have.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Awesome.
And other option, like I found excellent nut milk at my supermarket. Then it's basically just nuts and water. And they have almond milk, they have walnut milk, and they have hazelnut milk, and they are absolutely like delicious. It's creamier and is absolutely fantastic. So definitely try, experiment, play around and see.
Yes, absolutely. Gina's asking a question. If my kids refuse to eat green vegetables, where can we get them the calcium?
Make a smoothie.
Make a smoothie, yes.
Yes, and put berries. They will never know.
Yeah.
Especially with spinach.
You can make I love I think it was one of the Something for Dummies books, green smoothies there's so many recipes that you can make delicious, and you can get the darker greens in there, and then you put organic blueberries and strawberries. You can even add some, vegan protein powder, and really make something that's incredibly nutritious, and still get like tons of minerals and vitamins naturally, more absorbable.
Yeah. Also, I remember when my daughter, she was young, it was the same thing. I was making maybe a soup, and she was picking the greens. So I was blending it, so she could not pick anything out.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is bone broth. Bone broth is amazing to heal the gut, and is a good source of calcium.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, a lot of people are posting here about, one of them saying her daughter is 5 months and has a rash on her face for a couple weeks, can't get rid of it with regular moisturizing creams. She also has a runny nose, congestion since she was 6 weeks old. Could that be related to milk?
Absolutely.
I'm exclusively pumping for her. I'm a vegetarian and I drink milk.
That it could be. Besides, then it could be also something else. It could be any other food as well, but milk will be the number one. And also could be gluten as well.
When you're breastfeeding, I always say this, when there's any kind of a reaction in the baby, whether it's colicky, gassiness, fussiness, rashes, I always turn to the cow's milk first, because you don't want to eliminate everything all at the same time. You want to know.
Absolutely.
Cow's milk's probably the number one thing I think infants really can't tolerate through the breast milk, from my experience of what I see. So I would start with that, but like Monica said, it's possible it's the gluten, which we're going to talk about. So
also, if she's vegetarian, sometimes most of the protein, they come from gluten.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true. That's true.
Or soy, because soy burger, and soy is also, there is other issues with soy as well.
Let's actually mention that for a minute, because a lot of people think, well, I'll just drink soy milk. And we're talking about all these other different types of milk and alternatives. And I would normally recommend away from soy, and especially postpartum, where they could have issues with their thyroid already. And is that what you would say too? And so much of the soy is genetically modified as well.
Absolutely.
That's part of the problem. And then, of course, there's the herbicides and the pesticides as well. And if you read the ingredients section, the small print, if it's a can or a box and it has an ingredients section, read the small print, because you may see soy isolates, which is a very dangerous form of soy.
Yeah.
But it's a way that they can boost the protein content on the nutrition label. So it looks great, looks like it's full of protein. And then you can look and you can see, does it have gluten? You know, is it say gluten-free, or does it say made with wheat? That's another. So read the small print. It may have dairy. It may use whey, W-H-E-Y, as a source of protein. So you have to be really, really, there's a million other things to look for.
Dairy and soy are very sneaky in ingredients, in processed foods, and different ingredients. And especially if you are trying to cut it out for breastfeeding. Maybe you eat dairy and you're not feeling symptoms, but your baby is.
Absolutely.
It can be very sneaky and get in there. And even the smallest amounts can have a big impact on your little one. So if your baby's sensitive to it, I know both of my children were like that when I was breastfeeding. I couldn't even sprinkle a tiny bit of Parmesan cheese on anything, or they would be up all night, and it would take, you know, a good week to come out of my breast milk. So
yeah,
it was really important, and it impacted them in a big way. What about yogurt? We started to talk a little bit about it, but a lot of moms are feeding their babies yogurt. That's dairy too. What do you think?
One of the biggest potential pitfalls is yogurt, because if you read the ingredients, it should say yogurt, and essentially that's it. But all of these types of yogurt that are marketed for children have sugar and have carrageenan and have all sorts of, they have corn syrup and I mean a million different things. It should be colorings, right? It should be, you want the full fat, plain, maybe organic yogurt. It should have yogurt only, and then you can add your own stuff, some organic berries and etc. And then that's healthy, unless somebody is really dairy sensitive. But because you can be dairy sensitive whether there's lactose sugar in there or not. You could be sensitive to the proteins, and then you can get coconut yogurt or something.
Right. Is there a particular brand or something they should look for that they know they could trust and just go and get?
Honestly, I will say then if they can, one of the best things is making yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's hard.
You know what is in it. It doesn't really take that much.
It's very little work.
It doesn't take that much work. There is not also that much cost involved.
Okay.
But I have to say, then I don't know if your child will love the yogurt because they like the sweet.
Yeah.
It's like a dessert.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason they add sugar, which is so that the baby will like it. And sometimes we're so frustrated that we just want the baby to eat anything, and we know, well, he likes that commercial yogurt for kids that's got all the sugar in it, so I'm just going to feed him that. Mm-hmm. But we're really doing harm.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that could be mixed into the yogurt, like you're saying, berries, some vanilla? Is there anything that you would say, even stevia or something that would be safe to give to a child to mix into it to sweeten it up a little bit? A lot of people are asking about the yogurt right now. So they're saying, should we be eating yogurt or not be eating yogurt? Or
yogurt is dairy. It's yogurt fermented, so it's better, or like kefir, but try to avoid the sugars. So you don't want to start your child have like a sweet tooth.
Yep.
You'll know if you're sensitive to dairy or not pretty soon. So if you get an organic, plain full fat yogurt and you put in your own berries or some, that sort of thing, and the baby really likes it and thrives with it, and their skin stays good and they don't become colicky, then by all means, this is a good thing.
Good.
But every baby is different, just like every individual is different, and you have to trial and error to see what people respond to.
Yes.
And for the mothers, then they want to give their child yogurt because the probiotics, fermented foods. Start also your child being exposed to this kind of food. Now we really don't need fermented food. Fermented food is amazing as prebiotic, prebiotics is very good for the gut. So let's try.
Can you give some examples, Monica, of what you're talking about for the audience?
Sure. Well, one it could be kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles, and try to expose your child to those food, those flavors.
There's a drink that you can actually get called kombucha, which is a fizzy. It's as long as you're burping properly, but it's a fizzy, tasty, but boy, is it packed with probiotics and prebiotics, and the immune system will be so strong, especially by the time the baby enters, school, the immune system will be incredibly strong. The microbiome will be so strong.
Joe just went to get my kombucha because I love it. That's kombucha.
The baby will grow really, really well. I mean, exactly. Yeah. So that's another good one.
And also, probiotics improve the cognitive performance in children. So they are very, very important.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I have to say then there is one kombucha, and you have to look because some they might have a little bit of alcohol.
Oh, yeah. No, you don't want to do that.
Well, it's just happening naturally.
Yes. So, I may go look for that one, Monica.
The ShopRite, they have it.
They have it at ShopRite? Okay.
Well, I didn't know. I went there and I got the kombucha and I got a big container. And after I was driving and I was feeling weird.
Kate mentions honey after the age of 1, which I couldn't agree more. As long as it's an organic, raw honey, they can be incredibly healthy, really, really healthy. And if somebody's sick, there's a special kind called Manuka honey, which even a tiniest little bit of it, it's very sweet, but it can be incredibly healing for people.
Yes. Sarah mentioned here that does have a low amount of alcohol due to fermentation. Yes.
The kombucha.
Yeah.
So is it okay for children to drink, really?
Absolutely. The only thing is that different brands. So you have to look for a brand and it's very small amount, but of course.
I mean, alcohol comes from fermenting sugar, not from fermenting anything.
Right. Yeah.
And this is mostly low sugar.
Time to change topics.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Before we move on to wheat and gluten, because it's such a big topic, as we're talking about other things to drink, I really want to bring up the conversation about clean water and water bottles. Dr. Nate, I know that you have a lot to say on this topic, and bottled water is something that we don't really discuss that often, but I think it needs to be mentioned here.
Oh my God. So people just don't realize that bottled water is almost universally municipal tap water that is boiled to pasteurize it, and then is put into the plastic bottle when it's over, almost at boiling point. And then it's sealed for at least 6 months before it gets to us. Maybe if it's coming from overseas, then it's 12 to 18 months in a container ship. And so the plastic, so they're basically putting boiling water in low quality plastic and then sealing it for 6 months. So we did some independent testing on every available bottled water and found hundreds and hundreds of chemicals from the plastic, and many of them labeled by the government as toxic for humans. And if it says spring water, the law says they're allowed to call themselves spring water if 20% is from some spring somewhere in the world. So the most common Poland spring, most common, is there's no more spring in Maine. It's basically some spring somewhere in the world. 20% of the, and 80% of it is boiled municipal tap water. And we checked the pH. It's acidic. Acidity leads to inflammation, which is the last thing we need in adulthood or infancy. And then when you measure with an oxidation reduction meter, is it oxidizing, which is damaging to our tissues and our DNA, or is it anti-oxidizing, meaning it's repairing and healing? It's oxidizing. So basically, and it's a $13 billion industry, and for those who care about what's getting into our environment and into our food system, southwest of Hawaii, there's a whirlpool, a vortex of plastic bottles. That's
God, I have a video of that. It's the size of Texas.
It's the size of Texas. It's the size of Texas. So microplastics are getting into our food supply. And if 100% of people recycled, that would only cover 20% of the plastic bottles. So bottled water, I was getting acid reflux every time I went to the gym, and I couldn't figure it out. Turns out I was drinking a large thing of bottled water every time I went to the gym. I stopped that, and the acid reflux went away.
Yeah. What's the best kind of water? We have a filtration system here underneath our sink, like a reverse osmosis for our water. That's what I use. I don't know, what's the best one that you would say if parents need to use water? Would it be some kind of a filter? Can you get one of the like regular filtrations where you just fill up the container, or do you need to?
I tend to like preserving the minerals in the water, because the minerals are sort of organic minerals that we need, and the minerals in the water keep the pH okay. Reverse osmosis tends to strip out the minerals, so basically you drink reverse osmosis right away as you make it, because without the minerals the pH tends to fall, and that makes it somewhat acidic. The cheapest, easiest way is to get a very good filter for your tap, and then that cleans the water. And then there's different ways of making the water into a detoxifier, by adding some fresh lemon, by adding some apple cider vinegar, or some cucumber slices. There's a lot of those things that you can do. For those who are really interested, there's this Japanese water machine, which is used in much of the rest of the world. It's used by professional athletes, by a lot of spas and integrative doctors, called the Kangen machine, which is a whole nother topic that we can talk about. But basically, water quality in the reservoir, well, what comes out of your tap by government law has to be pH neutral, which is a pH of 7. But they don't tell you, there's no regulation on how to get there. So I've seen my local, pouring lye. Lye is incredibly caustic. It's extremely alkaline, and it's a decomposer, is what we really use it for. Mm-hmm. So to bring this pH up to neutral from acid, they have to add this incredibly caustic lye.
So if for moms that are in the chat right now asking about Brita filters, fridge filters, are they good enough? If they're not drinking bottled water, because so many people think, oh, well, it's so much better for me to just drink water from a bottle than bring water from the tap. But I guess that depends on where you live and what's in your tap water. Anything that they can do that's not too expensive, that they can purchase, anything off the top of your head?
Can't remember the name of it, but you really want, it's not that expensive. A plumber can attach it to your tap, and there are much, much better quality. You don't need a big, water filtration system you can basically get a very good quality filter. I looked it up on Consumer Reports or something, or ask a plumber or somebody. But that's sort of the cheapest and safest way to get clean water, because you're right. After Michigan, we don't trust. I don't necessarily trust the local municipality for clean water. And if lead gets into an infant, that's
Serious.
That's very serious for their developing brain.
Right.
Another problem is the fluoridation.
Yes.
Most municipalities, they put fluoride in the water. So,
Yeah, I mean, some places don't have it, and some places do.
Yeah.
What I would recommend for all of you guys that are posting this here is what we did is we had someone come out to the house and test our water. It's very inexpensive. They can come out, they can test it, they can tell you if there's anything in the water. Sometimes you have well water, and that can be fine too. It's usually even better to have well water there on your property. But if you have city water or well water, I would just have someone come out, test the water, and see what's in it. And like Dr. Nate said, there are filtration systems that you can install it right to the tap, like right under your sink, that can be really good. And
I see here a question that says, what is this system called? So I don't know if she was mentioning the system then Dr. Lebowitz was talking about. Dr. Lebowitz, what is the name of the system that you mentioned before?
So it's a long story, but in Japan, for 47 years, there's been a machine that's not that big now. It fits behind your sink up against your backsplash in your kitchen. That is a known registered medical device in Japan ever since 1975. It's been in every Japanese hospital, and it ultra filters the water. Then it adds hydrogen, and the hydrogen counteracts free radicals. So it turns the water into an extreme antioxidant that can repair every inflammation anywhere in the body.
do you remember the name of it?
Yeah, it's Kangen. Kangen water is the
Kangen water. I've heard of that before. Yeah.
It's the original. I did 8 months of research and almost got swayed by the internet into buying a knockoff. But there's some ways to really learn more about it in the United States.
So,
if anybody's interested. And then of course you can push the button for whatever pH you want and talk about pesticides.
Yep.
The only pH that will get pesticides off your fruits and vegetables is very alkaline, 11.5.
Okay, we're gonna have to do a whole other show on water, because obviously there's quite a bit of questions about that. So do you guys want us to come back and do a show about water? We'll do that for you for sure. I want to make sure that we get onto the topic of gluten as well, because there were a lot of people who need to hear about this, and they really need to hear, because it's really everywhere. And what are we referring to when we talk about gluten? What is it?
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Lebowitz.
Well, there are a number of different proteins in wheat, but a large complex protein that's in wheat is called gluten. And it's a source of protein. Traditional wheat that we've had in other countries for thousands of years, we've gotten used to it. Our bodies don't necessarily, many people still do react to it, but many people don't. The problem is that the genetic modification of American wheat, which started maybe a generation ago, started while our knowledge of genetics was was very incomplete. Not that it's complete now, but it was much more incomplete. So the intention was to alter only a few genes to make the plant grow faster, be a shorter plant, be easier to harvest, so the stalk sticks out more. But genes are interconnected, and with successive generations of wheat, downstream genes change and change more and change more and change more and change more. So the gluten protein in American wheat now bears a very, very little resemblance to the gluten protein in traditional wheat. Unfortunately, the one traditional blood test, it tests for celiac, which is only 1% of the antibodies. It's the worst one, but there are 99% other antibodies, and there are labs that can test for it, and Monica and I test routinely for that.
Yes, but actually I have here some information, and I can even show, I have here a sample report, the difference between the test that normally you do for gluten and the test that then it should be done.
If a traditional doctor does a test for celiac, it's one thing, and if it comes out negative, you might have a false sense of security. Monica is showing a blood test called the Wheat Zoomer, Zoomer. To learn more about it, you can go to www.vibrant, V-I-B as in boy, R-A-N-T -wellness.com. It's a very advanced small lab in California that can subfractionate 100 different antibodies. And we already know that a number of these antibodies are associated with different medical conditions, some for GI problems like irritable bowel, colitis, and things like that, some for skin disorders, some for neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and an imbalance problem called ataxia, MS. Yeah. So you can now, that test is available, and you can learn about it. But, celiac is one thing. Monica just held up a blood test that's several pages long.
Yeah.
Right. So it's important to know, because you're describing pretty much a staple of everyone's diet is wheat that is in pastas, in breads, in cookies, in crackers, in all the processed foods that we eat, that we feed our children. This wheat is what you were describing before, genetically not the same as wheat used to be. And it's why we're seeing people having these kinds of reactions to it.
In fact, I see Sarah here, then she said that her friend grew up in Germany and lived in Canada, never had any gluten issues. She moved into the US and she's very sick.
Yep.
So, yeah, and it can be very, very subtle. And below the surface, and the list of subtle medical conditions can go on from irritable bowel to acid reflux to ulcerative colitis, arthritis, autoimmune diseases, skin disorders. I have a friend, a woman who cuts my family's hair for years. Her daughter in Michigan was due to get married in 3 months and was going to the emergency room twice a week, doubled over in stomach pain. And I said, take her off, tell her to immediately get off gluten and take a few of these supplements to heal her gut, to heal her stomach. And the doctors had no idea. There was nothing that was helping her. And slowly, by the time it got less and less and less, and by the time of her wedding, she had lost a lot of weight by staying off of wheat and was not having any more episodes. So this was sort of...
It brings up a really important point that you're mentioning there, which is her doctors had no idea. And so this is not really something that, people will go in for different ailments, different problems to see their practitioners, and they're not getting this kind of advice like, oh, well, number one, get off the gluten, or stop drinking the dairy. So why is it that we don't hear this from doctors? I mean, I know why. We hear it, they're not really being trained for all this, like so many things. But what is a mom or dad out there to do when they're not getting necessarily the advice that they need to from their doctor?
Do your own research.
Yeah, do a lot of research about gluten, dairy, and then something called lectins, the lectins that are in some vegetables, because very, very often, and then of course get rid of the bottled water, get the sugar out of the baby, get the sugar out of the house, and especially added sugars. So read the small print ingredients section on any box or can. If you see the word sugar, it means it was added on purpose. And sugar, especially if it's made with fructose or corn syrup or anything with like that, is a bomb in a baby's brain. That is terrible. It's bad enough in adults, but in children, it is an absolute bomb for their brain. So high fructose corn syrup, fructose, just the word sugar, the word corn. And then, of course, there's a terrible form of fat that is incredibly poisonous called trans fat, which there's a code for it in the ingredients section called partially hydrogenated anything oil, because they're allowed to say, again, just like spring water is allowed to call themselves spring water if only 20% is spring water, they're allowed to say 0 trans fat on the nutrition label, even if there's still half a gram of this very, very poisonous substance. So read the ingredients section and keep your water clean and protect yourself and your baby, because again, anything like sugar or toxins or bad bottled water or wheat or gluten or dairy, if you react to it, anything will be magnified significantly in a developing embryo or in a baby or an infant, etc. Yeah. And come through the breast milk potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's asking about so substitutes. So in other words, they're eating gluten-free foods. Is that healthy? Is that because there's going to be issues with that too. The best gluten-free foods are fruits and vegetables.
Exactly. That is exactly. Being gluten-free is healthy. Eating gluten-free processed food, gluten-free muffins, gluten-free cookies, that's not healthy. That is not really going to improve your health.
Gluten is glue when you bake. So without the gluten, very often the glue that they use is starches, xanthan gum, tapioca, potato starches, things that may not be so healthy, at all.
But also, like Chelsea brought it up, then a lot of the rice. Rice has higher level of arsenic.
Yep.
So
you know what I found that I'm eating a lot of? Costco has frozen cauliflower rice, organic cauliflower rice. So good.
Right. Absolutely.
It's so good. It's like, here, Joe, once again, it's like a bag of cauliflower rice, and it's frozen, and it's so easy to make. And then instead of eating any kind of carbs or any kind of, gluten or rice, like you're saying, eating too much rice is not a good idea. You can substitute so many good vegetables. And they also have cauliflower, like mashed cauliflower.
Right.
So good.
Yeah.
You can make up your own. You can make your own pizza crust out of the cauliflower. And it comes out thin crust, crispy. No wheat, no sugar, no gluten. It's healthy.
It's awesome. Yeah.
And then you can get the kids involved. The kids can be involved, and everyone can make their own, and it's fun.
Yep. What were you going to say?
Sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
Then Sarah is asking a question. Is gluten overall bad, or is just the U.S. gluten? Well, wheat changed a lot from 1960 to now. He used to be much taller, and he used to be around 4 feet tall and with 28 chromosomes. Now he's about 12 to 18 inches tall and 44 chromosomes because he's all hybrid and genetically modified. But if somebody has a gluten sensitivity, then it's different than having celiac or gluten or wheat intolerance. It doesn't matter where the gluten comes from, if it's a pasta from Italy or if it's a pasta from US.
Okay.
Oh, if you're going to have pasta, buy the pasta from Italy, because that's not American wheat.
Right.
So somebody asked a question, is all gluten or bad, or is only American gluten? American gluten is particularly the worst because it's so different from what we're used to that many of us form antibodies against it, and not celiac, the other antibodies. But some people really do still have a gluten reaction to any gluten, and that can be serious. Sometimes the only clue is that a child is not growing adequately, and you have to remove all gluten. And again, the natural foods are the best gluten-free foods. Farm fresh eggs, green leafy vegetables, salads, organic fruits and vegetables, etc. Though, the healthiest foods are the nuts. If you're not nut allergic, those are generally the healthiest, gluten-free foods because they're naturally gluten-free. Somebody asked about oats. Oats are gluten-free because they're not wheat. Sometimes they can. So I know Bob's Red Mill makes a gluten-free steel-cut oatmeal, which is really healthy, where there's guaranteed not to be any traces of gluten.
Yeah. Monica, somebody was asking earlier. I got an echo. Hold on. Okay, gone. No, it's there. It may be the computer telling you it's time to be done. We got through the night, but now it's Hold on. I need my headset. 1 second. All right. Can you hear me? Am I still echoing?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, I still hear a little bit of an echo. So hopefully it's not too bad.
Echo.
Not much.
All right. Still there. All right. I'm plugging. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yes. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
No, I can't hear you now. Okay, hold on. All right, we got all the way through the night, and now it's not working good. What happened here? All right, hold on. Okay, I still can't hear. You know what? I'm going to say goodnight to both of you because if you can hear me, but I can't hear you, I think it's time for us to say goodnight. I will be able to continue without turning her off. So I first of all just wanted to say thank you so much to both of you for being here, and thank you everybody in the chat room for participating and asking such great questions tonight. It was really awesome to see you all, and thank you guys for sharing all of your knowledge and information with us.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
I don't know if they can hear you. I can't hear you, but hopefully they can.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right,
so
everybody.
much.
Good night. We're going to say good night. We will definitely have Monica and Dr. Nate back on with us. What? Okay, they can hear you, so you guys can say good night. I just couldn't do it. So you can talk. I'm sorry.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Okay.
All right, great. Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful night. I'll talk to you soon. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.